In this video, we're going to discuss solving a formula for a variable. This is important not just in math, but in other subjects such as chemistry, physics, finance. So what do we mean when we say solve a formula for a variable? We mean we want to, basically we're rearranging the formula so that that variable is by itself. Just like when we solve an equation for x, we end up with x equals something, usually a number. But in this case, it's not going to be a number on the other side, it's going to be the rest of the formula. So for example, let's say we want to solve this formula. For W. And the formula is P equals 2L plus 2W. You might recognize this. This is the formula for perimeter of a rectangle. So we get the perimeter by adding up the lengths of all the sides. For a rectangle, we've got 2 lengths and 2 widths that we're adding together. So the formula is helpful the way it's written if we know the length and the width and we want to find the perimeter. But what if that's not the question? What if we need to find the width necessary to give us a certain perimeter if we already know the length? Now, if we only had to do this one time, we could substitute numbers for P and L and then solve for W. But if we have to do this over and over again, it's going to be more helpful to just have the formula say W equals right off the bat, and then we can use it a bunch of times. So we want to get W by itself since it says solve the formula for W. So first thing is we see we have 2 terms on the right side. So one term has a W, the other term does not. So we're going to want to subtract the term that doesn't have W from both sides. So we have P minus 2L on the left, and we have 2W on the right. And then to get W by itself, we just need to divide both sides by 2. So there are a couple ways you could write this formula. You could just leave it W equals P minus 2L all over 2. That's sufficient. Or if you wanted to, you could split up the fraction. So P minus 2L all over 2 is the same as P over 2 minus 2L over 2. And then 2L over 2 simplifies to just L. So this would be another way to write the formula. Either way is fine. We've got W by itself, and there aren't any W's on the other side. That's the other important part. Alright, let's solve this formula for H. So this formula is for the surface area of a rectangular box. So it's S equals. And then a rectangular box has 6 faces, and they're matched up in pairs as far as having the same area. So 2 of them are going to be L times W, 2 of them are going to be W times H, 2 of them are going to be H times L. So we want to solve the formula for H. We need to get H by itself, and if we look at the right side, we have 3 terms. So we have a couple plus signs. So we have 2 terms that have H, and 1 term that does not have H. So let's start by subtracting the term that doesn't have H from both sides. So we have S minus 2LW on the left, and on the right side we still have our 2 terms that have H. Now we need to get H by itself, but we're seeing H in 2 different places, so how do we deal with that? Since now every term on the right side of the equation has an H, we can factor the H from both of those terms. So we can write that right side as H times the quantity 2W plus 2L. And now it says h times something. It's h times everything in parentheses. So to undo that multiplication, we can divide both sides by what's in the parentheses. And we're just left with h. So h equals s minus 2lw over 2w plus 2l. Let's go through one more example. Let's solve this equation for a y. So the steps for this one will be similar to the last one. We want to get terms with y on one side, terms without y on the other side. Now we have two terms on the left side because we just have the one plus sign. So the first term does not have y, the second term does. So we'll subtract x over h from both sides. And we only have one term with y this time, so that's good. We still don't quite have y by itself, though. We need to undo the fact that y is being divided by k. So to undo that division, we'll multiply both sides by k. We're going to want to be careful on the right side since we have two terms. That k has to be multiplied by the entire right side. So there are a couple ways we could write this formula. We could write it y equals just what we have on the right, k times the quantity 1 minus x over h. That would be one way to write it, or if you wanted to distribute the k, you could. And when you distribute it to that second term, it could be k times the fraction, or since it's k over 1, the k would be in the numerator.